Hey guys, this is Papa. Hi Lana, I see you there. Ian, where's Corey? Oh, there he is. Okay, hey Corey, good to see you. Listen, remember the other day when I showed you the citrus trees, the tangerine trees, and the orange trees, and the lemon trees? Well, I'm back here with the orange tree, and I'm going to show you today how to do something we call grafting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this limb here, which I know makes oranges because I can see some oranges here, and I'm going to reach in here and I'm going to cut it off right back in here. Now, I've got that one cut off, and I'm going to put it into this bag. I see the bag I've got with some water on a paper towel so that it doesn't dry up, and I'm going to take it back to the house and we're going to graft it onto our tangerine tree. So I'm going to shut the camera off, go back to the house, and get ready to show you how to graft it onto the tangerine tree. Talk to you in a few minutes. Okay, now I'm going to get ready to do some grafting, and I'm going to cut off a piece of the tangerine tree. I'm going to cut it off right here. Okay, watch what I do. I'll reach in here with my cutters. I'm going to cut it off right like that. There we go. Now that piece I'm going to throw away, and I want to be sure that the piece I've cut off is nice and smooth. It's got a nice surface to it. So I'm going to use a knife, and I'm going to use it very carefully. You're always careful when you're using a knife. Use it very carefully, just to slice it a little bit here. I've got a nice smooth edge. You can probably hear the wind a little bit on this thing, so that'll be one of the things you can hear sometimes. Now I'm going to get the other piece. Remember, this is the branch that I got from the other tree, and I'm going to cut off some of the parts of it. We call this pruning. Okay, when we just cut off pieces and throw them away, we call that pruning. So I've just pruned my branch, and now I'm going to cut this edge so it's a fresh cut, just like I cut the other one. And then I'm going to get my knife again. Here's my knife, and I'm going to cut a nice smooth surface. Here we go, nice smooth surface. Have to be very careful with the knife. There we go, nice smooth surface, just like that. Let's see if that's about the same size. A little too big. That looks pretty good right there. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to tape it on. So I've got to get some tape here. This is special tape we use for when we're grafting. So here I go. I'm going to tape this on. Here we go. Alright. So here's my tape. Just for this kind of job. A little tricky to hold it in place. Probably should have asked Grammy to be out here with me, shouldn't I? Well, we'll get it on though. Alright, oops. Alright, let's see what it takes to get it on here. Alright. Tape it on. I may have to come back and use a little more tape in a minute. But right now, I want to get it taped in place really well. While I'm taping it on here, when I graft this together, you know, the tree gets water from the ground and makes nutrients gets nutrients from the ground. Then it makes food for the plant in the leaves. And the food for the plant goes back and forth inside, and it carries the nutrients out so that eventually the limb can make fruit and things like that. Now we've cut off part of our plant here. Okay, this is becoming pretty good. Alright, I'm going to get some more tape. Here we go. Start back a little farther this time. There we go. Wrap it up really well. I want it to be wrapped up really well so that it won't come off, and so it'll grow together. And eventually what will happen is this part that I put on, it's made for growing roots. The other part of the tree is made for growing tangerines. If this works right, we'll have a tree that can grow both oranges and tangerines. All this process of grafting, I have never done it before. This is coming out a little more difficult than I expected it to, but I think it's going to work. We're going to try it anyway. Okay? So I've got that on. All right. Now, in order to make it nice and waterproof and keep the tape off, I'm going to spray it with some special stuff that will keep it waterproof. So let me get my sprayer out here. Okay, watch what I do now. Oops, here we go. Okay, got some of that black stuff all over it, and I'm going to spray some more when I'm not spraying towards the camera. And I'm going to turn the camera off for right now and talk to you more about it in a few minutes. Okay, just to be sure you understand what we did here, you can see where that black is right in there, and that's where I hooked the two pieces together. And here's the part I grafted on, and this part came from an orange tree, and here's the tree that I grafted it onto, and you know this tree because this is our tangerine tree. So we know the tangerine tree will grow good tangerines, but we've also grafted a branch on that if everything works right, it will grow oranges. And the Bible has something to talk about with grafting, and I'm going to go inside in just a minute, read to you that passage from the Bible, and then we're going to talk about why I was interested in showing you grafting. Okay guys, I told you that I'd talk to you from the Bible about grafting, and that's found in the book of Romans, chapter 11. And in chapter 11 there's a passage that talks about grafting. Now, I had to find the passage, so I went on the computer and I typed in graft, and I found where the passage was, and then I've looked it up in two different Bibles, and I'm going to read from the one that I think you'll understand the best. You may not understand everything that this is all about right now, but when you're a little older, you might really understand it. So let me read it to you. In the book of Romans, chapter 11, beginning with verse 11. The next question is, are they down for the count? Are they out of this for good? Now what he's talking about is the Jewish people, the nation of Israel. He says, can they ever come to know Jesus? Can they ever be right with God? And he says, are they down for the count? Are they out for good? Listen to his answer. The answer is a clear no. Ironically, when they walked out and left the door open and the outsiders walked in, the next thing you know, the Jews were starting to wonder if perhaps they had walked out on a good thing. Now, if their leaving triggered this worldwide coming of non-Jewish outsiders to God's kingdom, just imagine the effect of their coming back. What a homecoming. So he's saying, look, a lot of the Jewish people at first didn't accept Jesus, but some of them did. And because Jesus was Jewish, and he came to die for our sins, and those of us who are not Jewish, we're Gentiles, we came to believe in him. He said, isn't that a wonderful thing? And if the fact that the Jewish people didn't believe in him caused us to think about it, and us to begin to believe in him, that's a good thing. Now, wouldn't it be even better when the Jewish people start to believe too? So I've known some Jewish people over the years who came to believe in Jesus and were saved, and I hope you'll know some over the years too. Let me read on a little farther, because it gets into this idea of grafting. But I don't want to go on about them. It's you, the outsiders, that I'm concerned about now, because my personal assignment is focused on the so-called outsiders, the Gentiles. I make as much of this as I can when I'm among my Israelite kin, the so-called insiders, hoping they'll realize what they're missing and want to get in on God's good doing. Now, if their falling out initiated this worldwide coming together, their recovery is going to set off something even better. Mass homecoming. If the first thing the Jews did, even though it was wrong for them, turned out for your good, just think what's going to happen when they get it right. Behind and underneath all this, there is a holy, God-planted, God-tended root. If the primary root of the tree is holy, there's bound to be some holy fruit. And remember, our tree out there has a root, and then a trunk, and then branches, and the root feeds the trunk feeds the branches, and the branches make fruit. The branches make tangerines. Well, and now one of the branches is going to make oranges, right? Okay. If the primary root of the tree is holy, there's bound to be some holy fruit. Some of the tree's branches were pruned. That means cut off. Remember when I talked about pruning out there? And you wild olive shoots were grafted in. Now he's using an olive tree as an example instead of a tangerine tree, but it works the same way. Yet the fact that you are now fed by that rich and holy root gives you no cause to crow over the pruned branches. Remember, you aren't feeding the root is feeding you. It's certainly possible to say other branches were pruned so that I could be grafted in. Well and good. But they were pruned because they were dead wood, no longer connected by belief and commitment to the root. And remember, one of the things I told you is that when we prune, sometimes we prune branches that are dead. They're not producing anything. They're not any good anymore. Sometimes that's why we prune them off. The only reason you're on the tree is because your graft took when you believed, and because you're connected to that belief-nurturing root. So don't get cocky and strut your branch. Be humbly mindful of the root that keeps you light and green. So, what's more important, the root and the trunk, or the branch? Well, they're both important, but the root and the trunk are the most important. They're what feeds the branch. If God didn't think twice about taking pruning shears to the natural branches, why would He hesitate over you? He wouldn't give it a second thought. Make sure you stay alert to these qualities of gentle kindness and ruthless severity that exist side by side in God. Ruthless with the dead wood, gentle with the grafted wood. But don't presume on His gentleness. The moment you become dead wood, you're out of there. And don't get to feeling superior to those pruned branches down on the ground. If they don't persist in remaining dead wood, they could very well get grafted back in. God can do that. He can perform miracle grafts. Why, if He could graft you, branches cut from a tree out in the wild, into an orchard tree, He certainly isn't going to have any trouble grafting branches back into the tree they grew from in the first place. Just be glad you're in the tree and hope for the best for the others. So, God is telling us through the Apostle Paul, we're a little bit like a branch that was cut off and trimmed up and grafted onto a good tree. Grafted onto a good tree. So we could live and produce good fruit when if we'd stayed where we were, we'd have just been dead and not any good at all. Well, you won't understand everything I've said right now. But over the years, I hope you'll think back on this, and maybe someday you'll be thinking about it and you'll say, oh, that's what Papa was talking about when he was talking about grafting the branch onto the tangerine tree. We're like that. We were grafted onto God's tree so we could bear fruit. And we hope lots of other people will be grafted onto God's tree so they can bear fruit too. Well, I've enjoyed talking with you. Lena, we'll see you soon. Goodbye. Goodbye, Corey. Goodbye, Ian. All right, we'll be talking to you.